Alright, so it's recording already. We'll just get straight into it. Do you mind just telling us your first name?
Alright, my first name's Raymond.
What were your dreams as a kid?
My dreams as a kid has always been music. I remember when I was a kid, because my dad got married when I was younger, and so I had all these other siblings, and I remember just like being up on the table, acting like I'm performing on this big stage, and then my siblings and my friends would just be there acting like they're the crowd screaming. So it's like, it's always kind of been a dream of mine to do something like that.
Do you mind telling us a little bit about your a little bit about your childhood in general and how that was like for you?
Well, like my childhood was kind of dark. So, my parents divorced when I was real young. My dad actually cheated on my mom with my babysitter, and I think my mom lost her stuff. I remember being in the hospital with my mom. She tried to kill herself after my dad left with his new girlfriend, and then later became wife. And I remember being with my dad. My dad took me and my brother for a while. We didn't see my mom for a couple years. She had to hire a private investigator to find us. I think I was in the 3rd grade when she found us. I remember being in class and somebody came and they're like, "Hey, your mom's here." And I'm thinking they're talking about my stepmom, because I didn't see my mom in a long time. And it was my mom. And I just remember like she was hugging me and she was like, "Thank you, God. Thank you so much." And she's crying. And I was so young, it was hard for me to process like how I was supposed to feel, because it's like I missed my mom, but it'd been so long and I didn't understand why I didn't see her because I was so young. Now that I'm an adult, I get it, you know what I mean? And I think that's why it hits me more, because like I realized how much my mom had to go through to get me and my brother back in her life. So, and I think that was probably the first time I ever like experienced love from my parents. Like I think a lot of growing up, I see my parents fight, and a lot of it had to do with like my dad cheating and stuff. And I didn't even know. I found out later on when I was an adult that when I was staying with my stepmom, my dad was in jail and I wasn't allowed to be with my mom. And I found out it was because my dad was in jail for raping his boss. And so I didn't know that at the time. I just knew my dad was in jail. I didn't have my mom. So it was pretty hard for me and my little brother and stuff. And I think that just like really messed with me growing up. And then my mom did find me and my brother. The whole reason why, when I told you that, we moved around a lot, was every year it was like back and forth. Like we missed our dad so much, we moved back with our dad. And then he would go back to jail, so we'd have to move back with mom. She's in a new place at this point. And then we go back with dad. He's in a new place at this point. And it was just always like that. So I grew up a lot around like Edgewater, Westminster, Littleton, Denver, Aurora. Like it was just a lot of move around. And then once I hit probably like 13 years old, because I was going through abuse when I was living with my dad from a family member. I think at 13 I just kind of got sick of it, and I ended up getting myself kicked out of 8th grade. And then after 8th grade, I went to go live with my mom again, because my dad, he was going back to jail anyways, because he got in trouble again, because I guess he got in trouble for sexually molesting his ex-wife's oldest daughter. And a lot of me growing up, I heard all these rumors like, oh, it was a lie. Family members were going to testify against your dad and all this, but that didn't happen. And it was just like a lot of craziness. And so when I moved with my mom, I just got in a lot of fights a lot in school. I was always like the smaller dude in school, so everybody tried to pick on me. So I'd just fight. I'd get kicked out of George Washington High School. And then I ended up getting arrested because I tried to get a friend to, we broke into a clubhouse because my friend ran away from home and needed a place to stay, and we ended up getting caught. And so I went to juvie, and I think I was like 14 years old, about to be 15. and because I had gotten kicked out of George Washington High School, so that's how I know the age. And they ended up dropping the charges, and my mom, she told the judge, keep him. He's not going home with me. If you send him home with me, I'm leaving him at the courthouse. So I went to Family Crisis Center, and then I was there for not even that long, and I ended up running away from there and turning myself in like 2 weeks later. And when I did turn myself in, I just remember like expressing like a lot of anger because I knew my mom didn't want me. And when I did run away, I actually went to where my mom was living. I didn't know I had gotten her kicked out of that apartment complex for breaking into the clubhouse. And I just remember feeling lost. I didn't know where anybody was at. I didn't have that much family. My dad was in jail, so it was just kind of crazy. And then I remember when I was at the Family Crisis Center, it had snowed outside because it was in March, so it was still snowing, and we had to go outside, and the facilitator person there was like, you need to go outside, and I was like, can I go to my room and get my hoodie? It's snowing outside, and I have asthma. If I go outside in the snow, my asthma is going to react. And the lady ended up arguing with me about it, and I ended up kicking a hole in the wall, and that put me on probation for destruction of property. And I ended up being the first person in Colorado to complete the mental health juvenile program that they had for the court system they just started, and that required like therapy, compliance with medication, UA, stuff like that, and I ended up doing good. So I completed that, got off probation, and then I ended up going back to juvie because after I got off that probation, it was literally like 2 weeks for a cell phone that I stole when I was 14 years old. And apparently they put a warrant out for my arrest but didn't tell my probation officer, and I ended up going back to juvie. And so I ended up dealing with that process, and around that time I told my dad about what happened to me when I was a kid. And that's the first time any of my family ever knew. And after that, the family members that were sticking up for that person, everybody's called me a liar and all this stuff, and that was hard. So when I was locked up, they switched my medication, and I ended up, I was locked up probably for like 10 months. I was like 2 months in the Gill, and then like 6 months, 6 months at the Beacon Center, and I had to do therapy and like groups and stuff. They made me do classes like NA because I was smoking weed and I was a teenager, and they're like, you shouldn't be doing that. You know what I mean? And I'm 32 now, so at this time, weed's like not legal. So, of course, I'm not with that. But I ended up getting out, and I ended up getting off probation a year early for like following through with all my stuff and just like becoming a better person. After that, I stopped getting in trouble. And that was pretty much like my whole childhood was being locked up and all that.
Do you mind telling us a little bit more about your relationship with your dad and how that relationship generally felt for you?
Growing up, because I didn't know about the thing with his boss, and then all my family said the rumors that my dad didn't do that to his stepdaughter. So I always defended my dad. I was really close with him. My mom would tell me I put him on too high of a pedestal, if you'd say. You know, when you're a kid, your parents are your heroes. They're supposed to be your heroes. That's like the first thing when you're a kid. You look to them for like shelter and like comfort, strength. That's who you want to be. So I know I wanted to be a lot like my dad. I remember when he was locked up, I was like probably like 6. My grandma gave us this tape of him singing in front of a whole bunch of people at Coors Field. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I was like, that's my dad. Like, that's so cool. All these people listen to him sing, you know. And I guess a lot of people would say my dad was like a whitewashed Mexican because he'll sit there and talk like with his Spanglish, but then he'll sit there and sing country music like Like, you wouldn't even think if you close your eyes that that's what my dad looked like. And, you know, when I started getting older, you just start noticing things. You know, you notice and you remember, like, the past. And I think me and my dad started growing apart because, you know, once I became an adult and I could live on my own, my dad started using me. He lived off me. I let him stay with me for well over 6 months and said, save all your money, get your own place, do your own thing. I want to make sure you're good because, you know, that's how my dad raised me. My dad's always like, family's everything. You know what I mean? If you're down on your back, like, that's your crutches right there. Blood over everything. That's your lifeline right there. So that's how I grew up. You know what I mean? Like, if we ever treat each other like crap, like me and my siblings, you know, we got our asses beat. Excuse my language, but we did. And, you know, he literally beat that into our heads. And I think that's probably why I let the abuse that happened to me go on so long, because I'm being told that, you know, this is your family and your elders. You have to listen to them. You have to love them. You know what I mean? I was never told, like, this is wrong. This shouldn't happen. So, you know, I think I put up with a lot of my dad's stuff for so long that eventually I realized, like, something's not right. Like, you're my father. I see how my mom's doing. My mom, while my dad spent all those times in prison, my mom took care of 4 kids by herself. 4 kids by herself. She didn't have no help from any of our dads, you know. Me and my brother Gene, we have the same dad. My sister Shailene has a different dad, and my little brother Noel has a different dad. And we probably knew my sister's dad not even that long. And then, like, I just knew he was a piece of crap. So the only father figure I ever seen was my dad. You know what I mean? And my grandpa. And my grandpa was always, like, the man to take care of his family. He works. You know what I mean? He's a father that listens to you. He's there for you. What do you need? I'm here for you. My dad was more of like, my kids are grown. They don't need me no more. I'm done. But then it's like, hey, I need you. So my dad would come into my life and he would suck me dry, and then he would leave. He would take everything from me and then emotionally break me down, and he would leave. So
how'd you deal with that?
We stopped talking for 2 years. And, sorry, this shit is, still open wounds. I got a call in August last year. Hey, Dad lost his foot. His diabetes wasn't good. His foot turned black. He lost his foot. I'm like, damn, that sucks for him. Karma's a bitch. That was my response. And then, not that much later, my mom tells me Dad lost below his knee because they couldn't stop the infection, so they had to cut below his knee. And I'm still thinking he fucking deserved it, man. But what I didn't expect is the call of my cousin. Hey, man, I'm sorry about your dad. I'm like, oh, about his leg? He said, no, your dad died this morning. I had just gotten on break at work. And I hook up with my cousin, and my wife's just touching my back, and she's like, it's okay to cry. But it was hard because it's like, a week before you lost your leg, I didn't give a fuck. I said, karma sucks. That's your karma. But then I get the call that you died. And then through this whole process, my brother's telling me that you knew you were gonna die. You're reaching out to my auntie. You're reaching out to your dad. You're reaching out to your brother. To your friends. You're talking to Gene every day. But you didn't call me. You didn't call me. You didn't text me. And it's like, I remember the last conversation me and my father had. And I called him out on why he went to prison. And he told me fuck you, don't come to my funeral if I die. Last words my father told me. So it was hell being the one to make this GoFundMe, pick a picture for everybody to look at, ask people to send me money so I can get him cremated and bring him back to Colorado from North Carolina. That was hard. It was really hard because this man didn't care about me. And when I went to North Carolina with my older brother, Gene, and I didn't really grow up with him that much because my dad didn't really take care of my brother at all. He didn't really try. So when I met my brother as an adult, I think I talked to him for a few months. And then the next time I talked to him, we're trying to get my dad's ashes. So, that was hard. Especially, I know, for my older brother because he barely even knew my dad. So I went with him and my auntie. And my auntie's emotional because, it's her brother that died. And it was just hard, man. I went to North Carolina and I got to the funeral home where my father was. And, he's still in the hospital gown with the sheet halfway on him. And it was just so weird seeing my dad there not moving. It even looked like him, to be honest. Like, I didn't recognize who was on that table because he had swollen up so much from his diabetes going out of whack and the 2 surgeries he had on his knees, so I barely even recognized him. I watched my brother go up and say goodbye to him. And then I watched my auntie go up and say goodbye to him, and I waited for them to leave the room. And I just stood in front of my dad and I looked at him and I said, I forgive you. I love you. But I fucking hate you. And I walked out. I signed those papers, made the payment to cremate my dad. And I went back to the hotel. And I stayed there that whole weekend. I didn't leave. I just stayed there and I wrote a song for him called P.S. I Hate You. Because there's so much stuff that I wanted to say to him. But did it matter? Just saying it to his dead body. I wanted to share with the world what type of man my father was. Everybody that knew my dad, he lied to them and said, he's a Marine. He didn't serve for this country. He served time in this country. That's 2 different things. And I hated my dad for that. I hated him for all the lies he told everybody. He could never just be honest. I was proud of my dad for the man that I knew he grew up as. All the stories that he told me. All the stories my uncle told me. All the stories my grandpa told me. That's my dad I put on a pedestal. But everything I found out when I became an adult, I didn't know who my dad was anymore. And I think that was really hard. I get one of those again. Nice one.
How do you reconcile hating someone and loving them? Do you give in to the love? Do you give in to the hate? You just accept them both? How do you do that?
I'm still trying to figure that out.
What about your relationship with your mom and how that felt?
When I was a kid, after my mom found us with the private investigator. You know, things were cool. It's like, this is my mom. You know, she loves me. We do stuff together. But my mom is bipolar, and you know, she would be on and off her meds. So, you know, there's good things, there's bad things when you have a parent with bipolar. You know, I just know that when I became a teenager, we weren't close at all, at all, at all. I think after I got kicked out of the 8th grade, my mom, she was just like real negative towards me. She didn't like my friends. She didn't like the choices I was making. But she was always just rather asking like, hey, what's wrong? Why are you acting this way? She would just say, pack your shit and get out my house. I can't do this. Get out. When they dropped the charges, and I ended up going to FCC, my mom showed me how much she didn't want me. And, you know, it was like that constantly through my teenage life from 14 to 18. It was get out of my house. You know, I got out I guess you would call it like a halfway house treatment facility for teens that I was in. But when I got out, because I was a ward of the state at that time, they were supposed to pay the bill, but they sent it to my mom. And my mom said, get out of my house. I have to pay $10,000 for this. Are you serious? Get out of my house for 8 months of treatment. So it was like, wow, thanks, Mom. I got out of her house and I was homeless. You know, a lot of my teenage life I spent on the streets. But you know what? The streets that we're on right now, that's the streets that raised me. First time my mom kicked me out, I had a friend at school, George Washington High School. I had a buddy there. And we started coming downtown, and I started meeting a lot of other teens that were on the streets downtown. And first person I met, his name was Pittsburgh. And he's like, hey, man, you smoke weed? Come on, let's go smoke real quick. I'm like, cool. Like, he's seen I was having a hard time. He's probably like early 20s at that time. And, you know, I was probably like 14 years old. So we're chilling and stuff. And then I start meeting a bunch of people. And 2 people that I did meet in my life that made the biggest impact in my life is my bro Richie and my bro Squirrel. And I call them my bros because, you know, after being kicked out from my mom so many times, feeling like my dad would rather have a new girlfriend than, you know, try to be in his kid's life. You know, I had people down here that were showing that they give a damn about me and like they want to be there for me and vice versa. You know what I mean? We were always really, really close. And I remember one time even me and my bro Richie were locked up in the Gill and we're on 2 separate sides of the Gill because he's getting committed and I'm just going, like, they weren't sure what was going on with me yet. So we're like writing letters to each other and stuff. And the last time I heard from him, he had gotten transferred. And the next time I seen him, I was 18 years old. He was 17 and I'm downtown over on 16th Street in California, standing in front of Walgreens, and I see him. I'm like, bro, your last letter got sent back to me. Like, we're so happy to see each other again, and we're telling each other everything we've been going through. Because, you know, when you go through the type of abuse that you've gone through, it's hard to share that with somebody else. And, you know, when you know somebody else that's gone through what you've gone through, it's comfortable, you know, being able to tell that person, like, you know, I'm finally, like, free. You know, now I could just live my life. And that was really hard because when, you know, you went through so much years of trauma and not even just the abuse part from, you know, the point I was 7 to 13, but the mental abuse that you get from your mom when, you know, she's sitting there telling you you're going to go to hell because the choices you're making and this and that. And you need to get out my house. You don't want to go to church? Get out of my house. Pack your stuff and leave. And it was stuff like that. And it was just really hard. So, you know, when you have these people that you've grown up with and that, you know, you've learned to survive with, you know, you always keep them close. And so, you know, even still, I still talk to Squirrel, and I lost Richie. We lost him to suicide a couple years ago. So that was really hard. But even today with my mom, it's still like up in the air and off and on because my mom's bipolar and I'm bipolar. And I know that when she starts reacting away, I need to pull back. I need to just leave because I know that if I give in, then I'm going to let, you know, my demons loose and we're not going to be talking for a while. And usually that happens regardless of who's wrong. It's hard for us to get along. And when my mom's stressed out, we just don't talk that much. So me and my mom haven't really talked that much. I was going to kill myself not that long ago. My wife texted my mom to try to get her to help because I wasn't responding to her calls or her texts. And so she texted my mom. My mom's response was, if death occurs, I'm sorry. That's it. My mom didn't call me. She didn't text me. So finally, when my wife got me to go home, I went home and she told me the next day that my mom said that. And I stopped talking to her, man.
What's the biggest thing you learned from your parents, good or bad?
I know I definitely have both. I learned good and bad from both my parents. My mom always taught me how to work hard. Even if at my 16, I just turned 16 years old. And I wake up to my mom saying, happy birthday, go look for a job. And my mom also always told me, if you want a cell phone, if you want this, you want that, then you better find a way to make money. So that's what I always did. You know what I mean? When I was 14, I couldn't get a job, so I hustled. I learned what I can hustle. I learned how I can make money, you know? And then by the time I turned 16, I worked, but I still hustled on the side, and I had to do things that I had to do just to survive, you know? And that's a lot of stuff that the streets will teach you, man. And that's why I spent a lot of time in these streets down here, because Civic Center Park, before they used to block it off, I used to kick it there all the time. Right there in the little buildings with the pillars, that's where I used to slang. And I'd go from there and go all the way to Stoner Hill, all the way at the end of 16th Street Mall. And I'd be down by Platte River. I learned how to hustle, man. I'd go to the east side, go to the west side. I had to make money because my mom wasn't going to give me nothing. Oh, I need bus money. I better figure out how to get it, because that's how my mom raised me. You know, she wasn't giving handouts to me. My mom, it was hard for her growing up. She had to work from the time she was 14 years old, and my grandma left her and went to another state. And my mom wanted to teach me that same lesson. And in a way, I appreciate that, because I've seen how lazy my dad was. And my dad liked to live off people. He didn't like to work. He was always getting evicted. I didn't want to be like that. I want to be stable like my mom. You know what I mean? And another thing that my parents taught me was they taught me how to appreciate love, how to appreciate kindness, and to give that back, because there's not enough in the world. My mom always had like such a dark side to her that I was always not home. I was always down here. I was always with my friends. I was always trying to make money, trying to make music, just trying to do something more than be at home and angry like my mom. And I admired how much kindness my dad gave to the world. I think that's why it's hard talking about my dad, because there's so many things that I hate him for, but there's so many things that I love him for.
Could you tell us about your first love? And it's whatever you associate as your first love. It can be a person, place, or thing, and how that felt for you.
I think my first love would probably be my little brother Gino. My parents never liked to split us up. You know, me and him had the same mom and dad. We're the only ones out of all my siblings that have the same mom and dad. So, you know, we grew up together really close. And, you know, we've always had each other's back. Nothing ever stopped that. Nothing. And so, you know, my brother knows everything that I've been through. He's witnessed everything I've been through. And he knows that when I'm going through my bipolar depression stuff and sometimes I'm crying and I don't know why, he knows that I need normality. So he'll just sit there, you know, and he'll talk to me like everything's normal, like I'm not crying. He'll just try to bring normality to me, and that helps. You know, sometimes with people with depression, people aren't asking, oh, baby me, this, and that, because it's a chemical imbalance. You don't know why you're upset. Your brain is just telling you you're upset. But you could just be sitting there having a conversation with somebody. You could be sitting there watching a funny movie, and all of a sudden your brain is like, nah, you're not okay. And so your body responds to that. And, you know, my brother understood that I went through stuff like that, especially if I was trying like a new medication or something my doctor would put me on. You know, sometimes it would make me worse than normal. So my brother would try to always bring that normality to me. And I try to always do the same because he's autistic. So I guess that is what you would call love between brothers. You know, just understanding, being there, loyalty, stuff like that.
Do you mind telling us about your first loss or heartbreak? And it's whatever you associate with your first loss or heartbreak.
My first loss, heartbreak that really killed me is when Richie died. I've had a lot of friends die from OD. You know, my uncle, he died from OD. And when Richie died, because we were so damn close, we knew everything about each other. You know, that was the one person that we could be like, hey, I don't fucking feel okay today. And that's our person we could go to uplift each other and bring each other back to reality. You know, hey, I'm not feeling all right. Hey, I want to go do this drug. Nah, don't. We always had each other for that. So when I got the call, I literally walked through the door. I had just walked through the door from work, and my wife gets a message from his baby mom, and she's like, hey, I need to tell you guys something. And Kat gets a message, and she said, you need to sit down. I said, why? What happened? And, you know, in all honesty, I always thought I would get a call saying Richie OD'd. But never did I get the call saying that my brother hung himself. I lost it, man. I don't really drink that much, but I definitely got really drunk that weekend because I could not handle it. And I felt bad because, you know, he has his other blood brothers that have to go through this. You know, Tony, he's in prison. And Danny, he's been in LA dancing. But now he has to stop what he's doing and fly to Chicago to go cremate our brother. And then bring him back to Colorado so we could hold services for him. And that was hard. And I knew Danny growing up, not as much as I knew Richie, but I've met Danny a few times. And Richie talked very highly of his brother, always. So because he had talked so much about Danny, I always felt like I had that connection to Danny. And afterwards, after all that happened, you know, we both just decided that we feel like we need to keep in contact with each other because that's what Richie would want. And that's been my brother since. I make sure that I hit him up all the time, even if it's just a dumb message, you know, just to let him know, like, hey, bro, I'm thinking about you. And I started talking to his brother, Tony Ray, after that. You know, I just write him letters sometimes. He'll call me sometimes. I'll send him pictures sometimes and stuff. And the one person I think is really hard for me to reach out to, and it breaks my heart, is his son, because, you know, how it's like you want to be close to a piece of your brother, but his son hasn't known me that much because he's grown up out of state. You know what I mean? I met him a few times, and man, he has all that respect that Richie had. And he had 3 services, and all 3 of them were so full. The one in Chicago, the one that we held by the Platte River, and the one that we did at the church, to the point at the church they ran out of seats. People were all the way to the back because he made that that much of an impact to so many people. You know what I mean? Richie, I think he just felt so bad about a lot of the things that we've done when we were younger that he felt that he needs to right a lot of wrongs just to balance his scales, if that makes sense. You know, there's stuff I didn't even know that I learned at the funeral, like he was helping prostitutes get out of prostitution. You know, he was working with social workers to help them get girls off the street. He was helping a man in a wheelchair every single day that was just his neighbor, because he had that much love and that much heart. And I feel like a lot more people need to be like that, because it's too much evil in this world. We don't need that much evil. If we can get people to just start loving each other, helping each other out, you know, so much could be different for so many people.
Who would you say first taught you what love is and how?
I'd probably say my brothers, and that includes my brother Gino, Squirrel, and Richie, because when you say that you love somebody, that's unconditional. There's zero judgment, full trust, and loyalty. And I feel like when you have people that love you like that, like, you can't trade that for any amount of friends. You would rather choose quality over quantity, wouldn't you? At some point in my life, I realized who didn't love me and who would just put on that fake mask because they need something. And I cut all those people out. I stopped talking to everybody. I deleted Facebook. I changed my phone number. And I stopped talking to everybody but those few people. Because what's anything worth if you're surrounding yourself with sharks? You're setting yourself up for failure because they're just waiting for you to fall. But when people love you, you're celebrating each other's accomplishments. And when you're falling, you're picking each other back up. No matter what. No matter what. And I think that's who showed me real love, is my brothers.
How do you define love?
I guess, I mean, it's hard to say because I'm struggling with loving myself. And I guess in the process of trying to learn how to love myself, I'll learn what it means. But if I were to say what it means, I see it's hard to say that love just means loyalty, no judgment, caring for you and stuff like that, because I love my dad, but I hate him. You know what I mean? And it's like, how do you love somebody but you hate somebody? Because love means loyalty, being there for somebody, no judgment. But how can I love you if I hate you? You know what I mean? So it's really hard to say what I think love means, because is there different kinds of love? Does that make sense?
Well, I think you can love a person and hate what they do. When you love a person, you love.
But if I think love means loyalty and no judgment, I'm not loyal to this person and I judge you to the fullest. But I say that I love you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, what does love mean then?
Well, maybe you said it earlier when you said, when you went to see your dad and you said that I forgive you and I love you. You did say you hate him, but maybe a more definitive term to say it is, I love you as my dad. I forgive the things you did, but I absolutely hate the way you made me feel. It's just different playing with words, but love is that big. Somebody can do the worst to you, especially your parents.
Yeah.
And you still love them.
Yeah.
Like hate gets tiresome at some point, right?
You would think.
Well, I would think, I'm not, but the same way maybe sometimes you give into hate, go into the forgiveness loop, the love loop.
But could you forgive a rapist?
You have to.
You don't have to.
I think so.
Everybody told me that I had to. I can't.
Okay, so then maybe... I think in each person the best is in us. That's the worst, too. Rapist is considered the worst. I was in prison for 5 years. Rapists couldn't be on the main line, Like, even criminals are like... The irony, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The irony of being in prison. Like, I can murder, stab somebody to death all types of ways. For no reason.
Yeah.
But I'm better than somebody who did this, and that.
Yeah.
How do I get better as a person thinking that way? I don't. So what I end up doing by default is justifying my behavior while condemning another person's behavior. So there's no growth for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, we walk the prison yard and there is different crimes like kids and rape. And these are like, we do need to protect kids and women, and we need to do all those things. But once I start thinking that I'm better than somebody and justifying my own fucked up behavior that way, everything gets all types of fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have to lean into the forgiveness, the love, because if I don't, eventually what I'll end up doing by default is like, I'll start thinking I'm better than somebody else. And for me, it's like, I don't got no problem. You want to put me with the worst of the worst, you can put me there. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know. Your dad had his own story. Did he hurt people? Yeah. Should there be justice for that? 100%. But is he still your dad? Yeah. Like, that's the conflict, right? Of being a fucking human being. Like, and I think more families deal with this than we give in. Like, a lot of it's just everyone keeps it under the rug.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And it's just, where's the healing? Where's the healing? Like, there's a conflict. Everyone should say, right? You're right. You don't have to forgive what somebody did, but you're saying you still love. You can still love somebody and not condone what they do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the only reason why I guess I never really cared to learn to stop hating him is, when I was talking to my grandma, she was telling me the stuff that her father did and that she never forgave him, and to this day she hates him. And then she told me, I'm proud of you walking out of your dad's funeral the way you did. So I've been okay.
Easy.
It's not, man. It's not.
Especially with that jacket.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's love, bro. Love will have you do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're not condoning anybody's behavior. I know I'm sure not.
Yeah.
But I can't deny the fact that, I have cousins. I have a cousin who hung himself, who went through things of similar nature. Like, these are just the facts.
Yeah.
No one's gonna shame me for loving who I love, and period.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I condone it though. Like, you could have that. You'd be like, fuck all that. I'll never do that. It was wrong. But there's something about him that you love. That's the space, right? Like,
and that's why I wrote the song P.S. I Hate You, is because, I talked about the good, but I also talked about the bad. And, I talk about the love that was there, but I also talk about the hurt that's still there. And when I made that song, it was just so much like release and relief for me, because I was able to just get out all these feelings that I couldn't talk to anybody about.
You were honest.
Yes.
About how you felt.
Yes.
What's a good day look like for you?
A good day looks like payday, date night with my wife after we get off work. That's a good day.
How's that good day feel? How's it feel?
Man, it feels real good, man. Because when you sitting there living paycheck to paycheck, and you finally get paid, you're like, babe, let's go get some drinks.
Yeah.
This sounds right. This sounds nice.
How do you enjoy those moments? Don't you think the beauty? I believe in the power of the human heart.
Yeah.
And that clearly you've been through a lot, and you've had a lot of conflicting spaces, right, where you have to figure things out and you have to think deeper. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
But even with all that you can still have those moments with your wife, and you have like that moment of joy. Like, I think that's one of the most beautiful things we have.
It is. It really is. I don't think she realizes it, and she thinks it's weird when I'm staring at her, but when I'm staring at her, I'm just enjoying it, man, because how long can this beautiful moment last? I want to enjoy this right now. I wish she could see that, I do truly cherish those moments. I do. You don't always get a lot of those in life. And, when you have somebody that understands you, somebody that you can talk to constantly, like a lot of couples, they can't work together and live together. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, I spend too much time with this person. I need space. We work right in front of each other as close as we are. That's how close me and my wife work. And I love it, man. I love it. I love that, we'll sit there and we'll watch something the same time on our phones, and, we're in our own world. And we're like, oh, did you see what just happened on the documentary? We're watching World's Toughest Prisons or something. And, oh, did you see that? And everybody's just like looking at us because they don't know this little world that we're in, that we're always creating, that we're always in. And it's nice. It feels nice. It's comfortable. We get home and we spend time with our 5 animals. I love stuff like that, and I know she hates that when my birthday comes around, I'm like, oh, I just want to be at home, dinner, movie, something like that. She doesn't realize that sounds better than any party, getting drunk, or anything. I love when we could just be at home in our zen with our animals and like just enjoying each other's company. You know what I mean? That's like perfect to me.
Now, on the flip side of that, what's a bad day look like? And then what are the things you do to get through those bad/challenging days?
Bad day for me is me locking myself in the studio or driving off to the park or walking to the park with my headphones and I'll listen to music and probably just cry my heart out and then to try to heal myself, I have a phone full of beats, so I'll just pick a beat and I'll just start writing a song. I could finish a song in less than 30 minutes just talking about how I feel and what I'm going through. And sometimes even I've done it before. I started writing the song Push. That was on the first album that I released a couple years ago. And it started off like just upset and like going through stuff, but I didn't finish that song. And when I did finish that song, I was in a better mood, a better headspace. And I made it more of a song of you're going through this, but you can get through this. You just got to push a little harder because things are rough and just keep going. And that helps me a lot because when I'm creating this music, I'm going through these things while I'm writing this stuff. And so when I'm practicing the song, I'm repeating it to myself. It's like when doctors tell yourself you're beautiful in the mirror every morning, it helps. When I'm repeating this music back to myself, to the point to me recording it and then listening to it constantly just to figure out what part of the production needs to be better, I'm listening to the song so many times that eventually in my head I'm telling myself it's gonna get better, it's gonna be okay. So every album that I write, introduce the whole album, what it's about, this and that, and then it starts off kind of rough, but I always end it beautiful because we can get through this. And that's why I made Daily Medication, because daily medication music is what I use as my form of therapy to help me get through things, whether I'm listening to like Fora or Mark Battles or Tech Nine or Insane Clown Posse. I have a wide range of what I listen to for what I'm going through, and Daily Medication just said it all. So I made Dose One, and that's of like getting, it's like the top surface of stuff, everything that's starting to bother me, and then Dose Two that's gonna come out is the surface, digging deeper into what's really my problem. Why am I letting these things get to me? And let's talk about this. And that's why I like making music, man, because that really helps me get through a lot of what I went through. I stopped making music probably like 5 years ago, and then when my brother passed away, the first song that I wrote when I started doing music again was called Can You Hear Me? And that was to him. And I wrote that song because when me and him would get together and we're going through shit, the best way for us to start getting over that shit is we put on a beat and we just start freestyling. Don't matter where we're going, we just freestyle. And so when he died, I just felt not heard. I didn't really have anybody to talk to because everybody's going through their stuff on their own, trying to deal with it. And I'm like stuck in my head, so I wrote Can You Hear Me? And it's just kind of after that, every album I have a song on there for him, because I'm still going through that. It's still raw, and I still don't really talk about it that much to anybody, especially because I don't really have that many people in my life. So music just really helps me get all of that out.
What's a person or an event that shaped you, good or bad?
I'd probably say, if more than anybody shaped me, the way I am is my father, and that's why it's hard to hate him and it's hard to not love him, because I remember growing up laughing in a mirror and my mom's like, stop trying to laugh like your dad, and I looked up to him a lot. I love seeing how much people love my dad, because I was bullied in school too, and I didn't ever see anybody mess with my dad. My dad was untouchable. My dad was the top of everything, and I wanted to be like him. So I became outgoing. I had a ton of friends. I, try to be like my dad, try to be like a musician. My dad sang. I used to sing, play the guitar, but when I turned 19, I started rapping because it just felt more right for me. But a lot of everything about my dad, I tried to be like, when I was a kid, I didn't know my dad was going to prison for what he was. All I knew is my dad went to prison. My dad was a badass when he was a teenager. Him and my uncles used to fight the hood. So that's what I want to be like. You know what I mean? I want to be tough like my dad. I want to be resilient. I don't want to let nobody mess with me. I want to be tough. I want to be accepted. I noticed that I'm nothing like my dad. I cut everybody off and I secluded myself, but I know I have a lot of traits of my father, and if it wasn't for my dad, I don't think I would have the heart that I do. No matter how negative people have been towards me, I've always tried to brush that off and say, you know what? Shit happens. We could get past this. We could live for another day. So, I think my dad shaped me a lot.
What inspires you?
A better future. Something better than now. I want to be more like Richie and change the world. I want to have that heart, I know that I'm secluded and I keep to myself and I don't really talk to people, but if my music could change somebody's life, if one day I could make it big and I could do for others that I wish could have been available for me, that's what I want, and that's what inspires me, is to keep pushing. Like I see, I always see all these different things that big artists do to help youth. I've never cared about the homeless because I've been homeless and I know how a lot of those people are. And I mean, trust, like half of my friends are still on the street. But the youth, I think the youth is what need help, somewhere to go, somewhere to feel safe, a voice to be heard. And I feel like it's just something that I wish I would have had, that I think would have helped me a lot growing up. And I think it would have kept me off the streets, which would have led to me making better choices. And I think that that's just what they need, man. Like, honestly. And so I kind of keep that hope when I start feeling down and stuff. I try to find things that do inspire me to just keep pushing, keep going, because if I do keep pushing, keep going, and I don't give up, I might have that chance one day.
What's been a humbling experience for you?
I think a humbling experience for me is being able to have a voice and do these shows that I do, because at every show I've ever done, and I've been doing music since I was 19 years old, and I just turned 32. So, I've done shows for like Boondocks, Liquid Assassin, Busy Bone from Bone Thugs. And, you know, I've headlined my own show, and it's cool to get off stage and people that have never met you before and say, hey, that was dope. I really like that. Can I buy your music? Where can I find your music? Stuff like that. That alone is a humbling experience, because it's like this person heard me and they like what I said, because I don't make music that I'm not feeling. I make music of what I'm going through. So when somebody tells me something like that, I've reached somebody, and it made it that much more worth it.
So for this next question, if you can go in your mind and think, this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual, can you tell us about a time in your life that you can relate to the word war?
War. When I was locked up for the first time, the abuse had just stopped, and I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, but later it was because I guess I was bipolar and going through mania. When you say war, I was at war with myself. So that's the biggest war that I think I could think of and identify with, is because when you're so lost in mania, you don't know what's real. You don't. And I was going through a lot in my head, and when you're on these medications and they're trying different medications, you're getting tired, you're getting anxious. This one's not working, but this one might start working. You're constantly at war with yourself. You know, you're trying to grip reality constantly. And when you're dealing with bipolar depression, and if you're going through, like, little things can trigger you, especially when you're not on your medication, you're constantly at war with yourself. And that is a war that will never stop. So it's good to find things that help you cope with that, because that war, that's never going to stop.
So the next question is the same type of question. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Can you tell us about a time that you can relate to the word peace?
Yeah, I remember, I think I was probably like 16 years old. I was living on the streets, and I remember going down to the 16th, you know, the Platte River that's kind of by, I think it's called Commons Park. I call it Stoner Hill. But there's a spot there where everybody swims and stuff. You could go down the rapids.
REI is right across from Starbucks.
Yep. I remember swimming to the middle of the Platte River, and it's like the rapids come down one side, then the other side's like some rocks. Nobody goes down that side. But in the middle, there's like a little island. And I remember just sitting there, smoking a blunt. I was probably there for 14 hours. I was going through a lot, and just being by the water was just probably peaceful. I mean, it's hard to say that I've ever let myself feel peace, but when I could get by myself and enjoy little things like that and feel some type of peace, I guess that's it.
How would you describe that feeling?
It was nice because for once everything was just quiet.
Could you tell us about a truly difficult time in your life? How it felt, how you endured?
Well, a lot of my life has been pretty difficult. And it's hard to choose what's harder than the other because I did go through a lot. But I think probably the most hardest thing you could hear is hear your mom say she don't want you. That was really hard. You know, we tried a lot of family therapy with that. And the family therapy would just always end negative. It would end with my mom yelling at the therapist and walking out of family therapy. So I guess the hardest thing is feeling like your mom never really cared, unless it was for her benefit. And how I deal with that is, you know, I just try to embrace the love that I do have around me. Because if I don't embrace the love that I have around me and I'm constantly letting myself hurt over people who don't care about me, I lose myself. So I really try to put myself in like a better place and try to not acknowledge it, I guess.
Or not feed into it.
Yes.
Could you tell us about the happiest moment in your life and how that felt?
I think the happiest moment in my life is when I graduated college, because I got my GED when I was 17 years old because I didn't want to go to school. I'd rather work than go to school. And at that time, I was at the halfway/treatment center. And so I got my GED and all that. And, you know, my mom, after I got out of that place, just kind of always looked down at me and stuff. And so I went to college, and everybody still was like, you're going to drop out, something's going to happen, this is just a for now thing. And when I graduated, my mom and my grandma were there and watched me walk. And it was good because for the first time, literally in my whole life, I felt like my mom and my grandma were proud of me because I wasn't that close with me as a teenager. And then so when you're a kid and you're looking for validation from your parents, I finally felt like I had that. So it was also a big accomplishment to me because I had screwed up so much in high school and I got kicked out of all these schools just to end up with my GED, that, hey, I went to college for 3 years and I finished. Like, yeah, I did 8 months medical school and then I switched over to graphic design, but I finished. I did this by myself. Nobody paid my student loans. I did all this by myself. And that was really accomplishing to me because I didn't think I could do it. So I think it was pretty that.
What keeps you up at night?
Just feeling like I'm not doing enough. I always feel like I should be doing more. I probably sleep like 6 hours a night, 5 to 6 hours. And even on the weekends, I'll let my wife sleep in and I'll wake up and I'll start writing music because I feel like I should be doing something. I feel like I should be creating. I feel like there's so much in the world that I could be doing rather than sleeping. You know what I mean? I feel like when I'm sleeping, the world's still spinning and I need to get back up so I can catch up. So that's what keeps me up at night.
How do you find rest?
I smoke a blunt, take some edibles, and I pass out.
What keeps you going every day?
My wife, my animals, and hope for a better future.
Imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets, if any?
I think the only thing I regret is that I didn't speak up about my abuse sooner, and I could have stopped other people from getting hurt if I would have spoke up. That's the only thing I regret.
So you're alive and well.
Yeah.
Do you feel at peace with that regret that you just mentioned, or being able to make amends with that regret?
I still feel like I need to make amends with that.
Do you have an idea of how you make amends with the regret, like that, such as that?
By telling my story and telling people that even if I'm not okay right now, I do know that one day I will be. And that's what I hold on to, is that I just hope for that one day when I could find normality in my mind and just keep pushing. I don't want to give up. Some days I do want to give up, but I'm still here. You know what I mean? I'm still here today, and hopefully I'll be here tomorrow and the next day. But all I could do is just take everything one day at a time. Because if I don't take everything one day at a time and I'm thinking about the past and I'm worrying about the future, I'm not going to be okay right now. And I need to be okay right now if I'm going to make it to tomorrow.
You told me what your dreams were as a kid. What are your dreams now?
My dreams are the same, man. I still want to do music. You know, I still want to be on that stage performing for everybody. I want my music to touch people. I want to change lives. I want to change the world, man. I feel like every time I had a suicide attempt and I failed, every time I was supposed to die and I didn't, is all of a reason that I'm supposed to keep going, that there's supposed to be more to the life that I was given. You know, I have to believe that I went through all of this shit in life. I have to believe that I went through all of this for a bigger purpose. I have to believe that, because if I don't do that, I'm gonna lose myself. So I have to hold on to that hope that there's supposed to be more. Nobody's life could be this shitty for 32 years. And that's all.
You're the co-author of your life story. What's your picture perfect ending? And what I mean by that is, if it's a book or if it's a movie, what's that perfect ending, happy ending, fade before the fade to black?
A perfect ending would be if I were to picture it before I fade to black, is me in front of millions of people that I've touched. I want people to know that it's not supposed to always be bad. We can keep pushing, we could keep going forward, because like I said, life can't be this shitty forever. It can't. There has to be something you can do to be better, move forward, and not give up. And that's what I would picture, is just being able to change somebody's life, even if it's just one person that's not myself. Because if I can change somebody's life, then maybe that will show me that, look, you went through this, you overcame this, and even though you're still healing, you're okay.